welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. My name is Mark. If this is the first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast here is dedicated for those on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter or a tutor, or hey, even comedy fans who love watching the stars of the future in pub basements around the world. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit we seem to inhabit. Today's guest, he's new to comedy, so he gets a bit wary about a round of applause because he's always used to knocking. If you work at the BBC or the Met, watch out. And please pray, for the love of God, let's hope he thanks Beyonce. Please welcome to the stage, it's Mr. Lewis Howard.
That's one of the best intros I've had, I think.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah?
You know, as you see, I've come dressed like work till 7, podcast at 8. So
Yeah.
I do apologise for that.
That's the way it's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
So a busy day then?
Yes, a busy day. Unfortunately, you know, can't make enough money from comedy ever. Well, no, yet. Sorry, that's the phrase. Yeah.
Let's be positive. Let's be positive. So I did allude to it in the intro then that your comedy career, shall we call it, started quite recently.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us a background on what and how and why?
Yeah. So it's, I had a look earlier, 11 months and 3 days as of today.
Yeah.
So I started on my 39th birthday, April 23rd last year. I've always thought I was funny. And I'm a big lad, but I used to be 25 stone. So you got to be funny.
Yep.
You got to work on a personality. And somebody asked me what I wanted for my birthday. A friend of mine, Caroline, you know Caroline.
Yep.
And I think I had the amp and I was like, I don't know, try comedy, I suppose. And so she had a look up and there was only one that she could find for newbies on my birthday. And it was Notorious in Dalston.
Oh, okay.
So I went and did a 5-minute spot there. It ended up being 3 minutes 37.
Yeah.
But it went really well.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone else I was doing it. And the guy who closed that night came up to me afterwards and said, was that really your first go? And I said, yeah. And he said, I've got a night tomorrow. Do you want to come down and do it again? I think it was more the fact that somebody had dropped out rather than the quality of my set. But yeah, so then I went and did another one the next day. And that's where the obsession kind of started.
So you went in completely cold. You never went in via course routes or anything like that. You just thought there's an open mic. I'm going to just do it.
Yeah. I always kind of made people laugh telling embellished true stories.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between making your mates laugh in the pub and making a crowd laugh in a pub basement.
Yeah.
So I was fully expecting to die on my arse. I have died on my arse several times, but because I didn't on that first gig, I carried on.
Yeah. How did you prepare for that first gig?
Well, you kind of alluded to it in the intro. So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And so since leaving, I've had funny stories when it comes to dating or just like getting used to life outside of that.
Yeah.
And if there's two options in front of me, I always tended to pick the one that would make a good story. Am I going to die? Is this going to be funny? No, yes, right, let's do that then. Yeah. Sometimes the first one's been fairly close. But, and so, yeah, just thought, right, well, I'll try it. So I wrote a set about how I use humour to deal with difficult subjects and dating fails, really. And it went down quite well.
You said you got asked to do another gig the next night. So where was that one?
That was in Walthamstow.
Okay.
0596.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I did that. Didn't go as well, but not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do the same 5. Well, the same 3.5. But just because, and that's not an arrogant thing.
Yeah.
It's not because I think, I'm that good. It's because I think it wasn't good enough. So that's why I'm constantly writing, because it's like, right, I'm not happy with that. I want that to be better. I want that to be better. Doesn't always work, but that's what I try and do.
Yeah. Well, if we don't try it, we'll never know. It's ultimately the thing, isn't it? I think sometimes you do a gig and then you think I'm gonna do another gig really soon after. You go, I'm gonna have to write another set, and in your mind you're like, I'm gonna write another set because there might be people there that were there the other time and saw me. But it's not until you're kind of like a few gigs in, you work behind your ears and you go, oh yeah, maybe they don't care that I'm doing the same set again.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you asked, did I do a course? Well, because I didn't have any clue, so I just assumed that's what you had to do. Yeah. As well. Oh, surely they don't go back and do the same stuff. Obviously, I've found out now that, yes, that is how you get better, is obviously tweaking, changing, but focusing on your good stuff.
Yeah. No, so it's quite a jump in at the deep end.
Yes. However, I've met comedians since I've started that have opened by doing the blackout. So that's a jump in at the deep end.
Yeah, that's the diving pool.
Yes. That's my comedy. Yeah. I've done that twice. The first time did not go very well.
Oh, you lost your voice.
Yeah. So I shouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
But still did. And I don't know on what planet I expected an audience to not gong someone off who they couldn't hear because he had no voice. I don't know. That was just stupidity. And despite the fact that 100% my fault that I was gonged off, it still got to me. Because you just then like, why did you do that? What did I do wrong? Well, you had no voice, mate. That's why. The
good old blackout and gongs are obviously they're a common thing that appear on this. And it's one of those things where you just kind of think they're the sort of gigs where you go along with all the hope and all the luster and you go, it'll be fine. It doesn't matter. And then it matters.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. Not my worst gong story, though. So I did one gong before that for Chuckle up in Huntingdon.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't ready. So I'd been at work all week and at the time I was doing some funny shifts and Duncan Hart rang me and was like, there's 2 spots come up on this really good gong show.
And he needs a lift.
Yes. So there's a spot on this gong show and I need a lift. And so I was like, yeah, all right, I'll go. So go up there. And from the moment I got there, it was like nothing I'd done before. Proper venue, proper audience. And this is not in a disrespectful way to anyone on the open mic scene, but there were some high level proper comics there as well.
Yeah.
There were some people I knew, obviously Duncan, NJ and a couple of others. So I didn't feel completely out of my depth, but definitely a little bit.
Yeah.
Never done a gong show before. Got pulled out the hat first.
Yeah.
Right. The rules were explained. However, had never done or been to a gong show. So 5 minutes. I didn't really hear the rules because I was nervous and I was running through my set. I thought if you went over 5, you were disqualified.
Right.
And obviously if you got 3 cards, you were disqualified.
Yeah.
So I get up there, it's going really well. Jermaine Genius had just been sacked from the BBC, so I had a good bit on that. I'd got some good bits about like things going on with the Met. I'd got some okay bits.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're quite usually kind to you when you're up first. And no cards. Gets to 4 minutes 47. I finish and leave. Disqualified. I was just like, what have you done? Like, so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, there were like people there. Chuckle's a big, comedy promoter. President Bonjo was the MC. So like, and I've just made a complete arse of myself. Like, clearly don't know what I'm doing. And that, it just embarrassed me. And, Duncan and Gary and that, they still take the piss, rightly so.
Yes, definitely.
As they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the very first set then,
yeah,
how did you go about creating the set?
I could write not a good hour, but I could write an hour about being raised as a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
However, I don't, I've got people I love and care about that still hold those beliefs. I don't want to get up there and mock their beliefs.
Yeah.
So, I've given my word to my mum that I won't do that. Occasionally I get it wrong. I do some jokes about it, but I try and keep it as funny, but still respectful.
Yeah.
And not belittling anyone. And you've also got to bear in mind, the mother of my children, my ex-wife, fantastic woman, fantastic mum, still holds those beliefs.
Right.
I wouldn't want my kids to grow up and then find some content online where I'm taking the piss out of their mum's beliefs.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to touch on it because I wanted to use it as an excuse as to why I make these bad decisions throughout my dating life. Because it's like moving to a new country and only speaking 60% of the language, or never being taught how to deal with serious things and stuff like that. And so I touched on it. Well, actually, the first joke I made, so I was up second. Okay. I can't remember the female comic's name. Fantastic opener. Really good. And towards the end of her set, she asked anyone in the audience if they had any hobbies. And a couple of people said it. And I can't remember. It was very good, but I can't remember what it was. So when I got up there, I'd got this opening I was going to do, But I actually changed it as I was walking up to, oh, you asked about if you had any hobbies and I chickened out. My hobby is actually cricket. And I'd heard there were some Americans in the audience. I went, like, for the Americans, cricket, it's like lesbian sex. Goes on for fucking ages and mainly enjoyed by white over middle-aged men in their spare rooms. Yeah. So changed it as I was walking up. That got a laugh. Then said, raised in a high control religion, so I don't know how to process and deal with things properly. And then I talk about how I would say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and then, pick any partner that clearly has red flags all over the place, because that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, and that's what it was, and it went down quite well. And that's how I started, and I thought that all I would write about is dating fails. In my head, the jokes were always taking the mickey out of me. Yeah. Never the person I was dating. It was like me making these bad decisions leading to these situations. And then after a few gigs, some were landing, and some that I felt were really good were not landing. Looking back, in my head, they were mocking me and self-deprecating. That wasn't coming across. This is before Hearts Comedy Workshop. This is before the writing groups. I was not always managing to convey the thought behind the joke. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then if I talk to people afterwards, explain that, that didn't come across. Yeah. So I was like, right, I'm not good enough to convey that across. And I don't want it to look like I'm taking the piss out of someone else, because that's not the kind of comic I want to be, unless they are the BBC, the Met, the government. But that we'll move on to that. Yeah. So I was like, right, I was enjoying it, but not as much as I thought I could. So then it was about the Olympics in August.
I can't remember. So
they were in the summer, weren't they? And I was going down to do another spot at Notorious. I was driving down and I was like, I'm fed up with this set. So the Olympics were going on. You just had the pole vault with the penis. Yep. The riots were going on where people were getting arrested for stealing fake Crocs. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to write about what's been going on this week. I wrote it in the car on the way down. And again, as I now know, if you joke about something that happened yesterday, it doesn't always have to be the strongest joke because it happened yesterday. Yeah. And it went really well. And I thought, I quite like that. I'm going to write about things that happen in the news. Yeah. Great for a 5, challenging for a 10.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So then I tried to find the balance between talking about personal experiences and what was going on in the news. What I was then struggling with was the audience connecting with me. Again, didn't realise this until the workshops started, because you don't at the time. Yeah. Did a workshop with, it was Duncan Hart and Chris Norton Walker. And Chris Norton Walker said, well, he wrote in the book, Be Better at Comedy. That was his initial, which I still have. Yeah. I'm just going to print that off, frame it and stick it on my wall. And he said, how can you get up there and be this like topical, lefty, knowing what's going on in politics comic? Yeah. And then 2 minutes later, or you're too stupid to realise what's going on a date. Like, who are you? And I was like, I'm both, because that is genuinely who I am in real life. But audiences don't believe it. You can't be both. Yeah. You can, but on stage it doesn't work.
No. You need to kind of stick to the whole persona thing, isn't it? You need to stick to that one persona that people can actually believe in. Because if you say, I come back to this one before, it's been used so many times. If you come up on stage in a really posh suit and pretend to be downbeat, it doesn't work, because nobody will believe you. So why do you look like that and you're talking about being down or whatever? It's just not truthful.
But, and having not done a course or anything like that, I didn't know any of these things. Yeah. In July or August, me and a couple of friends, we were at the pub playing pool, and I was travelling into London 3 or 4 times a week to gig. And I was like, right, we should just put something on in Stevenage. So we did at the Glebe. Shouldn't have worked. Really shouldn't, because we had no clue what we were doing. But it did. Yeah. Ish. And that's when Duncan got in contact. So we put something on Facebook. So then Duncan Hart emails for a spot. Now, you know Duncan, his experience. Now, we are at open mic night set up by 4 of us in the pub with no experience. And this guy emails in with like a massive comedy CV. And so Chris, who was dealing with the emails at the time, forwarded it to Caroline, and then she forwarded it to me. And I was like, well, that's bullshit. Like, there's no way that guy is applying for our gig. So I just ignored it for quite a while. Duncan is aware of this, by the way.
Well, he will be now.
Yeah,
he wasn't already.
I mean, to be fair, he said, like, the first thing was like, who's this prick ignoring me? He's only just started comedy. So to be fair, yeah, we didn't have the best of starts. But then eventually got back to him, and it was around the time, I think that you and him had set the Hearts Comedy Workshop up.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah.
So invited me down to the workshop, and, you know, met Duncan, and we fell in love. And then coming to the workshops, kind of like did about 30 gigs and then did my course, as it were. And then that's massively helped, right, with things like the persona and the writing. And lots of people talk about like the finding your comedic voice. I think I have. However, I may well be proved wrong in the future. So the start of finding that was writing that set on the way down to Notorious, and then coming to the workshops and recognizing how the audience can connect with you.
Yeah.
And the kind of eureka moment for me, and I don't think you know this, was because of you. So we have the writing workshops, but we also have the writing WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
Something horrific had gone on with the police involving shooting somebody in London. Yeah. Somebody wrote a joke. Now, the point of the writing groups is to check the jokes are okay. Is this all right? You know, so it's to improve them. Because again, we all, in our heads, it goes one way, but how does this sound? Somebody put a joke in there and it came across wrong. Do you remember?
I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah.
I think.
And you replied, you cannot write a joke about that subject. It's too raw. You can't write a joke about that subject.
Yeah.
And I was like, better can. Again, no, not a better can. Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
And you'd put something about, you know, you got to be careful of this and this. And I thought, right, like, let me see what I can do. So it was like a challenge for myself. And so I went away and I had a look at it on the news. And it was the same time that Keir Starmer had announced that he wanted to get criminals back into work. So that's when I wrote the joke. Keir Starmer says he wants to get Britain working again. He wants criminals to make a positive contribution to society. So whether you are a murderer, a drug dealer, or prone to violence against women, three things that three different Met officers had done and been convicted of in the very recent past, there's a job at the Met Police for you.
Yeah.
You instantly replied, okay, you could do that. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what I should be writing about.
Yeah.
Again, because coming to the workshops, everyone was like, you should write about your upbringing. And I didn't feel comfortable. The dating stuff was getting a bit hack. There's nothing wrong with hack.
No, it's a common topic, isn't it, that a lot of people pick, but it's their lived experience. And I always think that if you can tell jokes about a lived experience, for me, it's harder to forget them. It's easier to remember on stage because there is a massive element of truth in this story. So, you know, oh yeah, I did that, then I did this and I did that. All right, you might mess up a few bits here and there, but the overall trajectory of the whole jokes or the whole set, you know where you're going because you know you did A, B, C, D, and E. Yeah.
It's true. And I guess, and again, so then I am going to jump about, and it's something my brother says about me, what Greg says. He'll say, is this a spoon story or a fork story? Like, has it got a fucking point? So, so this will jump about a bit, and I don't know at the minute whether it's a spoon or a fork story, but I didn't realise again, probably till beginning of this year. So at one of the workshops, Julie, one of the comedians, she helps run Phono, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's like, you know how you look? So at this point, I'm doing like a lot of lefty stuff, and I'm like, what do you mean? She said, well, you do look like someone who would vote for Raj and have a MAGA hat. And that really offended me. I was like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
But apparently I do. So, so then that helped me realise why some of the dating stuff wasn't working. Because if you look like that, people make assumptions. We all do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So I was not coming across as self-deprecating. I was coming across as misogynistic. So it's like, right, it's learning how you're perceived and then ensuring you write. And look, we're all going to get it wrong. We all get it wrong. But yeah, if you just keep learning, right, okay, so they're going to think this. So I've got to direct them this way. And you remember your gig, that's why I opened with that. Look, I'm aware of how I look. I look like a guy that voted Brexit for the wrong reasons. I look like a guy that has a MAGA hat.
Yeah.
And then go into the lefty stuff, and audiences seem to then buy into it a bit better.
Yeah.
Not all of the time.
No, there's a few people out there, as soon as they walk on stage, you have this perception of what they're like. Usually their first joke is to break that perception. And then it brings everybody along into the stories you want to tell and to the jokes you want to tell and how you want to make people laugh.
But if you don't realise how you look.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing, isn't it? People, there are certain comedians out there that go on stage and they wear the same gear every single time because they see that the clothes that they wear to go on stage, that's showtime and that's act time. Whereas you get a lot of people like myself that will chop and change between things and doesn't have a particular clothing look. It will change. But I do think having a particular look, even if you look the same in virtually every photo that's ever taken of you, you've then built that character and that persona. You've refined it.
There's a couple of gigs where, so the first time, and I'll talk about that one later, it was purely because I was late. So I did the gig in work clothes.
Yeah.
It went well. And then after like recognising what Julie had said and leaning into that and it working at your place, the next couple of gigs I thought, right, well, I'm going to dress in work clothes because then it will lean into that persona.
Yeah. Then
Duncan and I went up to a gong show in Leicester.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should remember what, because it's a really good one. I scraped through, Duncan smashed it. So he was on just before me. The promoter then gets up, or the MC gets up and was like, that's the standard. Anyone not to that standard gets gonged off. I followed that.
Yeah.
So I scraped through somehow. And I got really good feedback. The feedback the primary feedback he gave was, why are you dressed like that if you're doing political and topical stuff? And I was like, oh yeah. Because that was such a small part was how I look.
Yeah.
And I'd made that the whole focus of the act. I'd got it wrong. So then I'll wear like some smart shoes, black t-shirt, smart jeans. So I don't want to go up there with a shirt and tie, which some political comics do.
Yeah.
But because not all of my set is that, so it's like being smart. But yeah, we're always learning and most of the time getting it wrong. October, November was rough comedy-wise. I'll touch on that later. But at the minute it's going, okay, I've had some decent gigs. You know, some of them very good, some of them very bad. Mm-hmm. And I've had some nice feedback. But in my head, I'm like, at what point are they going to realise I'm shit at this? like, well, you know, when am I going to get found out, as it were?
Yeah.
Is it imposter syndrome? Do they call it that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I have that more after a good gig than after a bad one.
Yeah, I think that then flips to sort of like the you can have the danger of over-analysing things as well, and that you become so self-critical of yourself that it helps you to find the next better thing that you can do, but sometimes you end up beating yourself up over something that is not there. The amount of times you see, I'm sure you've been at gigs where somebody comes off stage and they go, oh, just wasn't right, or I forgot this bit, or I forgot that bit, and you're like, nobody gives a shit. You had the audience in laughter. They enjoyed your set. Just because you forgot you missed that little bit didn't detract from anything.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also, I mean, they don't know what you were supposed to say.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, yeah.
They've not got your script.
No, however, I do think the moment you get off stage and go, yeah, I'm good at this, that's the moment you're going to go, phew.
Yes.
So I'd rather be overcritical than deluded. And I'm not thinking about anybody there, but like, I'm just talking about myself.
Yeah.
Like Max Silver and I, so we started around the same time, and every morning after one of us had a gig the night before, we'll like send each other a voice note of a review. Yeah. And, you know, we will say that ones went well or ones went badly, but even the ones that we feel went really well, and we're like, you know, I'm buzzing this morning. There's always, but I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I need to change that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way you get better. Well, and then finding people or ways to improve. So like, obviously Duncan and the workshop, you know, being around people like Gary, like, I mean, you just watch Gary and you just think, like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
Or a gig last week, so you had Gary MCing and then Matt Price headlining, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite weird, I think, when you're in this game and you see a established professional do it, and you just look at the difference. The difference is huge, to the analytical eye of a open mic comedian as such. You're looking at them going, how did he get to that line so quick? And how did he get to...
Well, it's also, I mean, what I found with watching Matt, so obviously, you know, everyone, a lot that go to the workshop either know Matt or gig with Matt and always talk about how good he is. And I've seen a lot of his stuff online, but seeing him live, you can't tell what's material, what's crowd work, what's... Yeah. You know, if he come up to you after and said, I made all that up on the spot, you'd believe him. But if he said, I wrote all that before, you'd believe... You can't see the seams, as it were.
Yes.
And I know people quite often say it's like the difference between Premier League and conference. I think that's the difference between Premier League and a different fucking sport. Like, it
can be, yeah.
Yeah, it's how it feels. But, you know, took the opportunity to speak to him afterwards for 20 minutes or so and just trying to, like, glean some nuggets of... I mean, I don't know, he's doing it 20 years. So,
yeah.
But it's just like... And he, you know, he was so nice, gave some, you know, pointers. He said, you know, you're not that shit. And no, he didn't. He said, did you perform? No. Who
are you?
Yeah, who are you? But no, just different bits of pointers and stuff like that. I mean, it helps. So a friend of his is a guy called Don Biswas.
Okay, yeah, I know that name.
Yeah, topical comic. And I met Don on my like third or fourth ever gig. And like, we stayed in touch and we messaged. And I mean, I think we're friends. I don't know what he thinks. But yeah, really, really nice guy. So it does help. You go, oh, like, you know, I know Don, and Matt then was like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you. But yeah, just trying to be around people who are much better than you and listen to the advice they give you. Yeah.
I mean, I went to one of Gary's nights and I saw Nathan Cassidy. And
I've not seen him.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember Gary going up to him at one point saying, so what are you going to do tonight? I don't really know. And you just get up and he does 20 minutes or whatever it was and just rattled through stuff and crowd interaction and seemed to like, at one point, I don't know if he seemed to think he was losing the crowd, he got on back and then just weaved anything in. And you're just like, that's just pure entertainment. And it's the skill that's built up over years and years and years. But you keep looking at people and going, why can't I do that? Why can't I do that?
And I mean,
but you understand why you can't do it. But it's I think when you get to a point when you're doing a gig and something goes off piste and you go with it, and then you then manage to bring yourself back into where you was, you kind of go, that's what it feels like to be a professional. You've achieved something. It might only be for 20 seconds, but you've experienced that whole, okay, look, there's something's happened in the room, going to address that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You're an idiot, blah, talking to somebody else and then come back and they went to the doctor tonight and that's what they said. And you're like,
it's a bit, I think, is it being modular, like being able to change. And I think, look, that is only ever going to come with experience.
Yes.
I had a bit of a head start because, you know, you had to be modular if you're knocking on somebody's door at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So I feel I'm okay at reading people and being able to talk to people.
Well, that was one thing I was going to ask has being an ex-Jehovah's Witness helped in public speaking and in comedy?
Yeah, massively. Going door to door, doing bits and pieces at the meetings. Yeah, that's massively helped. It's the little look. Again, the people we spoke about, their crowd work is amazing.
Yeah,
but being able to deal with hecklers or people in the crowd, I'm scared about my jokes not landing. I'm scared about like dying on my arse.
Yeah.
I'm not really worried that I won't be able to deal with what somebody says.
Okay.
Because you grow up sort of doing that. Example, I did a gig in Nottingham a few weeks back and I do a bit about Trump's got in. I say, talking about criminals. Did you see Trump's got back in? And some guy cheered. And so I sort of cheered, looked at him and I went, just giving you a heads up, you're not going to like the next 7 minutes. and so I always feel like I can say something. Might not be funny, but I'm not going to freeze.
Yeah.
So that helps. Being able to speak in front of people. I mean, it's helped me at work and then it helps with this as well. The one thing it doesn't help with is microphone handling because it was always a fixed microphone. Hence why I use a fixed microphone on stage.
Yeah, I was going to come to that and ask about, because obviously some people come on and they pick up the microphone, but some people pick up the microphone because, or one of the reasons is because then I've got something to do with my hands. Otherwise, I'll stand there on stage with my hands in my pockets and I'll look defensive and it won't look natural.
But I talk with my hands.
Yeah.
So That was not an issue. I used to take it out because that's what everybody did.
Yeah.
But what I found, you said not to do that before we started. But that's what I was doing. So you couldn't hear my sets, and there would be a complaint afterwards. Couldn't hear you. And it was here at the workshop. Try keeping it in the microphone stand. And I did that, and my set improved because people could hear it. Well, some people think it improved once they could hear it, massively, because it was what I was used to.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that as I develop, I'm going to have to change and learn. But at the moment, it works.
Yeah. So we haven't really touched on this bit yet. Well, you've kind of mentioned it. Was best and worst gigs.
Best gig. Can I do a few for different reasons?
Yeah.
So best gig last Saturday afternoon. So I've got 2 daughters. We were out once. Somebody who I knew and had been to one of the gigs was talking about the gigs, and Layla goes, "These people that find you funny, Dad, are they ill?" So yeah, my daughter's like, "You're not funny, Dad." Yeah. Like, no way, and have never not expressed an interest in comedy. So I don't really talk about it around them because I don't want to annoy them any more than a dad does. At the minute in my garage, we've got the mic and amp. I'm storing it for Gary for some space because we're doing some gigs together. And Layla and Eve found it. And I was like, we can do a karaoke if you want. And they were like, no, we're going to put on a comedy. So I think this is my best and worst gig. So my 2 daughters did 5 minutes of nicked jokes.
Yeah.
Well, no, Layla had one original. Neve, in fact, nicked jokes from Layla who'd gone on 3 minutes before her, which is just, unforgivable. And I had to MC it to their toys and teddies. Mm-hmm. So best, because obviously my daughter's doing it, like my best gig. Worst gig, because at the end we had to redo it because during my crowd work, I called Pikachu a prick. He was being a prick. And so we had to redo the entire gig. So no, yeah, like that will stay with me forever. It doesn't matter what happens in comedy. Them like trying to be daddy, telling Nick no, like obviously not. But so that. But genuine actual gigs. Do you want worst ones or best ones first?
Go for best first.
Best first. I would say for probably 3 for very different reasons. So October, November last year, I was in a real lull. Was struggling at gigs, struggling with my writing, and in a bit of a lull. And then I had a really bad gig at Hatfield on Tap. And then I had a week or so off, and Gary Walsh put the latest heat of Clap Back to Reality up for December. Yeah. And I thought, you know what, I'll just apply on the day. Yeah. Somebody dropped out. So he said, yeah, no problem, come down. Finished work late. So rocked up to the pub in Kentish Town in my work clothes, boiler fixing clothes. Get into the pub. Barmaid goes, oh, has somebody finally rung up about the boiler that's not working? And I was like, no, I'm here I'm one of the acts. I said, however, I can have a look at it afterwards if you want. So got up, did my set. My hair was too long. My beard was unkempt and I'm in work clothes. It had been a tough room, and it just seemed that stars aligned for me that night. They bought into me. They got me. I don't think I was better or worse than anyone else, but the audience seemed to respond, and it was an audience vote. And I come joint first and then won the clap off. Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't mean you're better or worse. It's competitions are competitions. But I was like, okay, what did I do differently there than the rest of them? So that kind of got me my mojo back. Yeah. What I'd done differently was I related the news stories to me. I'd been just telling them as jokes and not saying how it affected me, despite having been given that advice in the workshops. Because moving, I'd changed job and stuff like that. So I was just getting up and running through the motions, whereas my personality came back in that. Probably because I'd come straight from work.
Yeah, you didn't have time to think about it.
Yeah. Then fixed the boiler afterwards. So, so that one. And then the other 2 for different reasons. So up in the Midlands, so there's a promoter called Spiky Mike, runs Funhouse Comedy. Mm-hmm. Now, again, coming into comedy cold, not doing courses, don't really know who any of these people are, even though I probably should have done. Sunday night, about 10:30 at night, he posts on Facebook that somebody dropped out. And he got a gig in Derby the next day. Yeah. Anybody wants to reply, send him an email. I said, with a video, I said, hi, I'm available tomorrow. Here's a video. Worst email ever. He watched it, 20 minutes later replied and said, yeah, you can have a spot. So I messaged Duncan and I was like, oh, I've got this spot. He rings me. He's like, what? I was like, well, like, who is, he's like, Lewis, what are you doing? You're probably 6 months away from that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, I'm going to make a test of myself up here. Went up again, stars seemed to align and it went really well. And then he immediately then booked me for another gig, gave me some great feedback. So that was naivety, luck, and hard work, probably.
I think naivety can play a very positive part.
Could have gone massively wrong though.
It could have done, but then you're at the point of what have I got to lose?
Yeah, I don't know. So
yeah, exactly. You've literally got nothing to lose other than
reputation.
But not even that. You know, you come off and go,
I haven't built one, so yeah.
I've only been doing this for 7 months, 8 months, and he goes, well, that's all right, fair enough.
Yeah, but then
come back again in a year's time.
Or it could have gone, well, why are you applying for my gig if you've only done 7 or 8 months?
Well, you're the one who accepted it based on the video. I'm not doctored that. That's still me.
Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, it's, you don't want to apply for stuff that you're nowhere near ready for because it makes you look stupid.
Yeah, I know, but ultimately,
so not you, I mean,
no,
me.
No, but I'm saying if the criteria has not been put out, the criteria said, I need somebody, send us a video and I'll pick.
Yeah, I've asked Duncan to help me on my journey and guide me and mentor me, and then not asked him, just applied. But that worked out quite well. And then a couple of weeks ago, so Belper Comedy Club do a gong, no, it's not a gong. It's a competition, and they're called the Search for a Rising Star. And whoever wins it gets guaranteed spot on their pro night at Belper Rugby Club. So went up with Duncan, and again, as you know, as a comic, a lot can depend on where you are on the bill.
Yeah.
So they do that spinny wheel thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like on the computer. I don't know how rigged it is, but the spot I got by chance was first after the break. Now, everybody who's done comedy knows that is the easiest spot. They're warmed up. They've gone and got another drink. So that is the easiest spot. So that's the spot I got.
Yeah.
They didn't like the police. They didn't like the BBC. And
as in they didn't like the organisations, not your jokes. So they loved your jokes.
Yeah. Again, see, I'll come on to that. It's not misconception that I don't like the police. That's not true, but I'll come on to that. And yeah, so it worked. There were 2 comics on that bill. If not, there were better comics than me on that bill. 100%. Definitely. But on the night, that's why competitions are a farce.
Yeah, I get it.
However, it does feel nice to win.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it feels horrible to lose. But in the cold light of day, they don't mean anything.
Yeah, but it's the same thing that everyone says. I've said it before. Is those that don't like gong shows are the ones that never got through. The ones that do are the ones that do get through.
But when you're sat the next day talking about it, you do know that isn't going to make or break your career. I mean, there are a couple of competitions that if you were to win would make your career, but you can make a living without ever winning a competition.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but that did feel nice to then get that guaranteed spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say they were my best 3 gigs. Did you notice at no point did I say that I was good? It was luck, chance, and stars aligning.
So now bring the mood down.
The worst 3.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be 3. It can be
okay.
one.
No. So many. No. I would. So obviously when I started, I've always tried to, anything I do, I try and work hard at it. Not saying good at it, but just work as hard as I can. So gigging 3-4 times a week in London to start with, and performing at nights where there are 6 people and 3 bar staff and nobody's listening. It's quite soul destroying. I understand why. I'm not criticising, but that they are quite difficult. I done a couple of like proper bear pit gigs. Well, I've done 3, and watching the pros deal with those first 2, and then how I dealt with them, I went away like, are you ever going to be able to do it? They were wherever I thought I was. They showed me that I am not.
Yeah.
So as much as they were bad, I learnt more from them than the good ones.
Yeah.
So I would say those. I mean, the Gong Show where I left.
I was going to say there's got to be a particular one where you've just died and.
Yeah, I did one in a coffee shop in Soho, and they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
They just didn't get it. Good friend of mine, Tony Fedder, come up to me afterwards. He was there, and he was like, I don't think they watch the news. One guy come up to me. And he said, you might be funny, mate, but I don't know who Keir Starmer is.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, which says more about the educational system in this country. Yeah. So, again, but that, not a single laugh. And I was like, right, what do I need to do to stop that happening again? And I felt terrible the whole way home. And I was like, are these jokes not funny anymore? Yeah. Like, have I all of a sudden lost it? Is this the moment they realise I'm shit? Yes. But all it was I wasn't changing or adapting for the people in the audience. They were younger, they clearly didn't watch the news. And, so the difference between that and then like when I went up to Nottingham and the demographic of that audience was Tory voter. No, I was like over 50.
Yeah.
So then I changed some of the references. And it's recognising that it's not their duty to laugh, it's your job to make them laugh.
Yeah.
However, you don't have to change at all. I watched an interview with Andy Jesselnick the other day, and he said his first year of gigging died pretty much all the time because he knew what he wanted to do and didn't want to change it. And respect that. I want to be modular. I don't want to sell out my principles and what I want to be, but I want to be able to play different rooms, whether they're left-leaning, right-leaning, not far right-leaning, I won't do any of those gigs, or older, younger. Yeah. So it's been able to change. And, I'm going to get it wrong more times than I get it right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you said so two things there. So it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, what you need to do is this, this, and this. Yeah. Thinking on your feet when you're on stage is much harder.
It's when I look back at my sets and everybody... If they see me do well, whatever, and they go, oh, that was really good. You look natural, you were flowing and all that. And I look back and go, well, there was still a lot of waffle. And the way that my brain works with comedy is that you get some people that are very much word for word, which is how they are. And that's perfectly fine. And then there's people like me that basically go off bullets and have certain bits to hit. But sometimes I'll waffle in a bit before I get to the hit. And that's the bit that annoys me.
You're a storyteller though, aren't you?
I am. But there's also that point where you can be a storyteller and have everybody engaged and have everybody listening. But ultimately, if you go for a period of like 30 to 45 seconds without a laugh.
It's just a TED talk.
It is. And you're there going, I thought that bit was quite good. That little subtle bit. And then maybe they're listening, maybe whatever. But you start to learn the things that you need to do and what you need to change and stuff like that. And that's just where all the experience comes from. Like you say, it's easy to sit here and talk it. As soon as you get on a stage, it's the whole comparison, bloke down the pub making his mates laugh.
Yeah.
You've got banter bouncing backwards and forwards. In an open mic comedy night, that doesn't happen that often.
Gary?
No, but open mic night.
No, okay, yeah, no, he's a pro. Yeah. You will find someone that can do that, but that is someone who is Yeah.
But this is the other thing is when you do like, the one thing that makes me really laugh about open mic comedy is when you get the crowd come in and they're all like, I'm not sitting at the front. I'm really scared. It's like, guys, we are more scared.
It's like spiders.
We're more scared of you than you are of us.
Yeah.
We don't want to interact and talk with you. We just want to get through these 5, 7, 10 minutes, whatever, and get the jokes done.
We just want to give you a signal of when to laugh. Yeah. But you made a point a minute ago about losing them.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, something from the workshops that I've learned is, so I've got some light stuff, some silly stuff, some political stuff, and some dark stuff. And some of my darker stuff, I feel are my stronger jokes.
Yeah.
So I would front load them. However, they are polarizing.
Yes.
So if you open with that, and you lose them there, it don't matter. But I was like, well, it's my strongest joke.
That's what I think. That's.
Was it you and Duncan that said that?
I think that comes back to like the previous conversation when we was talking about the joke that I pointed out in. You shouldn't say it like this in that.
Yeah.
Because you're in the environment you're telling that joke, you could lose 50 to 75% of that audience straight away.
I mean, I can see how that person had written that joke and their thought process behind it, but again, I mean, you see how many jokes I put in that group, and then I put, no, that's shit. The cadence is wrong. So, again, not a criticism, but it's, if you tell a joke like that too soon, you've lost them. Again, without harping on, Duncan, one of the things he talks about gaining the audience's trust. Yeah. Once they trust you that you're funny, I'm not saying you can get away with anything, but you can then push. And it's one of the things I've changed my set recently. Well, every time, but one of the things I'm doing now at the beginning, because I'm doing quite a few. Most of my stuff is 10s now. I'll still do 5s and 7s. I'll do whatever I can get. Yeah. But I will say about how, you know, we're going to do a little bit of dark stuff, a little bit of topical stuff. We're going to, you know, we'll push it. If you don't like it, I'll bring it back. So I'm trying to let them know that, look, I am going to push.
Yeah.
But if it goes too far, I can bring it back. Mm-hmm. That seems to be working. And then I open with something that I would never think I was going to open with, and it's landing at the minute.
Yeah.
And it's such a stupid little joke. And I know you're going to ask about what your favourite jokes are, so we'll come to that in a minute. But by bringing that forward and then doing the little subtle joke about being raised as a Jehovah's Witness and knocking on the mic, they're already ready to listen, so they then get that joke and it works better. Yeah. But yeah, constantly tinkering and changing it about and trying to say, look, I am going to push, but I will bring it back if it gets too far. Yeah. But you can only do that if you've got enough to actually bring it back.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I have, you know, at the beginning, I've lost crowds by too soon with a dark joke.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Duncan Hart here from episode 37. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like, a 5-star rating, and a follow on whatever app you're using right now. Mark will be forever grateful. Now, back to this cracking episode.
So you made interesting points already about not necessarily gigging. You're gigging further afield now. So when you started, you were mainly focusing around the London area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where a lot, you know, there's lots of opportunities there. There's hundreds of gigs there.
Yeah.
They're all bringers, you know, and I understand some people have an issue with that. They are challenging. Yeah. Some of the places, if you're coming from out of town, you don't need one. But I understand why in London that they have to be done. But and I could be wrong here, but what I've seen and found is, so you've got loads of open mic if you want to start, get your stage time, and then in London, then it's like a massive jump till if you make it. Yeah, yeah. I've found, again, could be wrong, there's not a huge amount in between.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's how different if you found an audience in London to an audience outside of London. And I've personally always found the opportunities of longer sets outside of London than inside. But you've got longer sets, but less opportunities to do. Yeah. But then I think that does then come down to the number of gigs you do versus the number of quality gigs you do.
Yeah, and that's a difficult balancing act, isn't it? You know, I've driven 60 miles for a gig I thought was going to be worth it, and it really wasn't. Yeah. But it is what it is. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there's more opportunities for 7s, 10s outside of London. Inside London, mainly 5s. Harder to get them. However, I mean, obviously, again, lucky Duncan taking me under his wing and me being able to drive and him not being able to drive. Yeah. I'm screwed if you ever does start driving again. So we drove. I mean, that is one of the things I enjoy the most about comedy. It's like me and him just driving around the country, chatting shit all the way up there, greasy food on the way back. Yeah. You know, sometimes the car journeys on the way back are good for both, bad for both, or good and bad, you know, one and the other. And I love that. Like, it's like a very budget version of being on tour. You're like, in the van, driving about. Yeah. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Not sure Duncan does being a passenger. My driving's not the best, but we haven't crashed yet, so it's fine. So those opportunities come about, and I'm very grateful to him because he will apply and he will say that if it's a gig that's difficult to get to, he'll say, you know, I've got this fellow. Yeah, yeah. Like, he's an Uber and he can tell a couple of jokes, basically.
Well, the thing is, that's a really, that's quite an apt thing, because this is not saying you're getting these because of that, because you have a driving license and a car. But one of the best pieces of advice I was given at the start was in a group of people with a very renowned promoter in London. They said, what's the best way to get ahead? I said, have a driving license and a car. I said, because half the comedians do not drive. If you can be that lift, you will get a spot if you're willing to do it. Obviously, you've got to be good.
Yeah, so that initial spot, they will, you know, I get given that like little leg up because I can drive. And Duncan will say about what I can do, and then I'll send him a video. But I've got to deliver when I get there. Oh, so I appreciate that. Yeah. I get that opportunity. Yes. But if I messed it up.
Oh, completely. Yeah. That's not.
No. So I was agreeing with you. Yeah. I was agreeing with you. So it's, I'm very, very fortunate, but I'd only be fortunate once if you didn't deliver, because all the promoters will all talk, and rightly so. You know, the gigs up there, quite often paid audiences, they can't put stuff on where the audiences are going to go away and say that was terrible. Yeah. So I feel that has helped my development, because it's then I have to be better.
Yeah.
Because I can't let him down. Because if he's recommended me and then I flop, okay, they don't book me again. But then if he then recommends someone else, they're going to go, well. So yeah, and that, to me, that helps. Like having that pressure of, look, you're not just going to let yourself down. You're going to let your comedy friend. So that's good. But then also, like, I will apply for my own ones, and then I'm getting ones where they've seen the video and then they'll say recommended me to someone else. So and you asked the question about the audiences. In London, the Met jokes, I love them. Absolutely love them. They still like them outside of London. They really like them in Nottingham. But it doesn't get as good a reception. So it's different stuff. Inside of London, I have to do more like TikTok news. Outside of London, I can do more Daily Mail news, as it were.
Yeah, I can see that.
But again, only learned that from getting it wrong. Yeah. So it's just tailoring it. I've got this bit to do in a minute about the Super Bowl halftime show, which I think next week's probably the last time I'd do that, even though I really like it because it's just getting old news now.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always. I used to do bits in my first ever set. I used to do jokes about politicians. There was a joke in there about the Met as well, like that, and what was going on with them. And then you get to a point where it's like,
I mean, they continually mess up, so you can't keep that one all the time.
Yeah, but I had a joke about Matt Hancock, and then you realise like 6 months later, he's completely forgotten about and nobody knows who he is.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a winter fuel allowance joke. It's spring. So it's like, right, I can't do that one anymore.
Yeah, it's like I do love the bit on your winter fuel allowance where you finish off with I'm going to give the punchline away, but by spring I'll have a new house. So
I've changed. I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if you did it at yours. So I got a bit about the assisted dying program. That was quite dark.
Yeah,
I really liked it, but it wasn't landing, and I get why. And then I've got the winter fuel allowance bit. So I thought, well, I'll combine them. So I'll say, right, if we've all heard about the assisted dying program, that doesn't work with younger audiences, by the way, because they haven't.
Yeah.
Or they hadn't. It hasn't worked when I've done it. Assisted dying program, a cut to the pensioners' winter fuel allowance. So combine the two, and that's worked, makes it less dark. And then, that is bad news for me, Nan. But I have a new house in the spring. Back to what I said about Hatfield Tap. So I just did that, cut to the pensioners' winter fuel allowance, didn't relate it to, because the biggest laugh is about me having my nan's house and then being able to say, well, actually, she's already dead.
Yeah.
And then when Thank Beyonce was a trend on TikTok, they said it was COVID, but I've never heard of Thank Beyonce in 92 years. So it's like tying it in. So whether you are younger or older or what level of news you're aware of, there's something there. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult and you don't always get it right. And I've said, if you're over 40, and that was pointed out in the workshop the other day. Well, you can't just assume this and that. So it's not making the assumptions, but trying to be modular with it and making sure it appeals, but also can't do a winter fuel allowance joke in April.
Yeah. It's so annoying when that happens, but you kind of think it's a good way of keeping you on your toes.
And also, but that's what I want to write. So that's one of the things. Park it until it gets to winter again, and then develop it, change it. Yeah. Hopefully, something will come up and I can use it again.
I mean, ultimately, the governments seem to be doing as much things to get as many people off their side as they can. So it's almost less like, so what have we got this week? And you can just pick anything out of Prime Minister's Question Time. You don't even have to say where it's come from or when it happened, because...
Well, the stuff I do about Trump, and I say he's saying some wild shit, well, one of those is made up.
Yeah.
So, but because he said so much, so I go, have you heard he said this? And someone in the audience always goes, yeah. I just fucking made it up. So yeah, it's finding that balance and making it believable. One bit of advice that I was given, and I'm not saying it applies to everybody, was, because when I was doing the dating sets, I would say, this is true. No one gives a fuck if it's true. They want it to be funny.
But I always have this thing with, I've done it myself, and I hate myself whenever I say it and I hear it come out of my mouth, and it comes out with just subconsciously, it goes, and this is a true story. So all you're doing to your audience is saying, well, is everything else a lie?
I'll say for me, the time I would say this is true is because it wasn't funny enough. Yeah. So I'm like, please laugh at this because it actually happened.
Yeah.
Whereas like the audience just want you to be funny. They want it to be believable. They want it to be funny. So yeah, if ever you hear me say this is a true story, it's because I haven't got faith in the joke. Okay, this is my worst joke, so I have to tell you it's true. Please laugh. But I look up to some of the comics I look up to now. I like Daniel Sloss. Absolutely love Daniel Sloss.
Yeah.
Trevor Noah. And they touch on like difficult subjects, hard hitting subjects. So a lot of their stuff is based in truth, especially like Trevor Noah's stuff. And I always like admired like the clever writing. I was talking about the Met. Like I don't want to sit and say, oh, you got a problem. I don't just want them to be better.
Yeah, they're just they're giving you the ammunition for making jokes. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, and the point that I'm trying to get across is not it's okay. It's like be better. Not that I'll ever get to that point, but if I was to ever get to a point of having a special, I already know what it's going to be called, and it's criminally incompetent. And it was a phrase that my brother's partner used. She had to make a complaint to the police about how they'd handled the situation. They'd just forgotten to deal with some stuff and whatnot. Yeah. And she said, this is beyond the level of incompetence. It's borderline criminal incompetence. And I was like, Alex, I'm going to use that. and it's just like an exasperation of like, be better. Yeah. Like what, sanctions are not working. Like, so he's taking the piss out. Are you going to work? I mean, not me taking the piss, but and so like Daniel Sloss does a lot of bits and pieces like that. And he will touch on subjects which realistically you shouldn't be able to get up there and do. But because of the way he does them and the cleverness of his writing, it works. Yeah. And you going back to like talking about how to write, quite often I will write something and I've got 2 or 3 different people I'll send it to and say, this is how I think it sounds. Does it? Yeah. And they're not all just 40-year-old white blokes. Like it's different people from different backgrounds to be like, this is what I'm trying to get across. Yeah. And 50% of the time they'll go, you need to change that slightly. I know you, so I can see that, but you do that to an audience that don't, they won't get it.
Yeah, I've gotten
more than 50% probably actually.
I mean, I've got a few new bits, and I think they're good. I think they're really good, but the actual topic, how it will start, will put people on the back foot, and that's not where I want that person to go. But I don't want the audience to turn off at the first point when I mention it, because it's going to sound like I'm punching down on somebody, but I'm not. My focus on the joke is about something completely different, but related to that. That part that I think people aren't going to like is just the catalyst to get into the joke.
And is that about, obviously like the way the joke is structured. I don't know what joke you're talking about, and I'm just speaking from the way I write. If there's a joke where I can't change it, but people are like, once you get to the punchline, you realise what you mean. Yeah, it has to go towards the end, because it's like you've got to build up their trust. So they've got to know that, look, this may seem a bit cagey, but he's going to bring it round. It doesn't mean you get it right all the time. No. But yeah, it's so tough, isn't it, to do that?
It's good to learn these things at this point, I think, than thinking you can just go in as a bravado and go, I'm just going to do that. At least if you're thinking about it beforehand, you're actually putting deep thought into how it's going to come across. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, there's two parties in this transaction. There's yourself and there's the audience. One of you has to have fun. If both of you don't have fun, there's no point in doing it.
You've both got, because if you're not having fun, they won't have fun.
Yeah, but you can. They might not like it, but you might go, I like this because they don't like it. Yeah, but true. If they don't like it and you're going, I don't like this is shit, then
that ain't going to work. And I think that for me, with the subjects I joke about when they're the sort of topical and to do with government, BBC, Met, whatever, celebrities, then it's one thing if they don't laugh. Look, comedy's subjective. I hate the phrase, they're not funny. The phrase is, I don't find them funny. Yeah. You don't have to find anything funny. Somebody will find people funny. So if somebody says, I don't find him funny, that's fine. It's not. But I want them to find me funny, but you can deal with that. If somebody was to go away and think that my jokes were about the victims of police brutality or the, like, punching down, that I would hate that. I'd never want. So I do make sure I check them 2, 3, 4 times with all different people. Yeah. If somebody then gets the wrong end of the stick, my conscience is clear that I've tried my best. I've asked people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different genders, like, how is this coming across? And I will take on board the feedback. So I will feel that I've done everything I can to ensure it's come across the right way.
Yep.
And if they come and speak to me, I can explain it. And if they want to say, actually, I'll always want to take advice to make sure that. But yeah, so that's my only way of a worry is if it's not heard properly or taken wrong, and you're like, if you don't find me funny, well, you're probably in the right. But if you think I'm trying to like attack the other side of that joke, that would upset me. I'd want to put that right.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. You just want to make sure that you convey your message and you entertain and everybody gets it. And you don't come across as somebody that said, you've been misconstrued in a way. Because
especially if you are, I know we spoke a lot about it. If you're joking about police brutality, has to be clear that you are saying the police need to be better, not that is okay. I think, if you're doing a different joke and they take it wrong, but yeah, that's my only real major concern.
Yeah.
But that can happen if they get distracted and they miss an important setup and then it's like, shit, that went wrong. I had one joke where I wrote, and it was quite dark, and I'm not going to say it because I got the cadence and the wording wrong. And it sounded like, it just sounded the wrong way around.
Yeah.
To me, it didn't. And then someone said it back to me and I was like, oh yeah, no, I see that. Like drop that completely.
Yeah.
And then we did a workshop the other day and one bit of advice that was given was, if they're really serious subjects, bring them down to the lowest common denominator, make them silly jokes.
Yeah.
And if they're really light subjects, make them really serious. So I'm trying a little bit of that as well.
Okay. That's an interesting way of trying it and looking at it. I've never really kind of...
take the seriousness out of it. It's so serious already.
Yeah.
The audience have come to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
If you are trying to do political and topical, you can't always do that. But I have found, I said earlier about I open with a silly joke. So the one that I got wrong, which was like a real... like police brutality one, I got the wording wrong. So I've changed that into a silly joke and it's working. Yeah. It annoys me because that other joke I spent ages writing, like ages checking. And I was like, this is clever. This is factual. Like, what is it? But it was just the case. It made people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. They did it, but they didn't want to be made felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So revert into a silly joke and all of a sudden it works and it's the same joke.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Just how a simple change of wording or bringing it down slightly can, even just bringing in a certain pause or a certain reaction or doing a hand gesture or something.
This was a little bit more extreme than that.
Yeah,
so the original joke was about how many people died in police custody last year and what their ethnicity was. I liked it. I thought it was hard hitting. It would make you feel uncomfortable, but it would make you laugh. Perhaps just did the first two. Changed it into, is it right to tell it?
You can.
Yeah, changed it to a racist and a murderer walk into a pub. Barman says, evening officers. And people like it.
I think, I honestly think that's one of my most favourite jokes from yours.
And it annoys me so much because it's like, no, it doesn't annoy me. Like, I'm pleased that people like it, but it's like compared to how long that other one took me to write, I'm like...
But that's sometimes it's just the simple things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if it's the sort of thing that gets you off onto a good start, you get to a point sometimes, I think, where you can almost do whatever you want.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Almost within your persona. I use that as
a good gauge as well, because I tell that at the start. Yeah. And that gives me a good gauge as to where I can go. And I did that in Nottingham, and she was about 70 in the front row. She was killing herself. And if you see the video, I stop and I go, that's made me happy now. Like, it was the most she'd laughed all night. Yeah. I was like, you shouldn't be laughing at that.
I love audience interaction when you get somebody that's at the front, whatever, is having fun, is laughing, and you can make a reference to them. And there's quite often you'll see me in the crowd if something goes well, and I know there's somebody in the front that's just laughing pretty much anything. It's just like, I love you, please come. Just come to every one of my gigs, and then that gets everybody on side.
Yeah,
and it's those.
Do you have any, like, when something lands? And as a comic, it's landed. So one thing I did at the start, and I don't know if everybody does it, when you get them laughing, you just want to quickly carry on. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, workshops, so like, no, pause, take it in.
Wait.
Take some balls to do it, doesn't it? Like,
it does.
Yeah. But, and I don't do it consciously. And do you know what? When I watch the record the sets as everybody does, not for anything other than to watch back and say, right, what went well, what didn't. Yeah. When something lands, I've now learnt to pause and wait. And it's a subconscious thing. I do this like grin, like, okay, yeah, you're on side now.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. And people message me and go, do you know what? I can tell that was going well because you did the cheeky smile or you did that little grin. And it's fine. I don't mind. It's kind of my trademark. But it annoys me that I do it because I don't know I've done it.
Yeah. And you can't replicate it because it's in the moment.
But it happens because it's that feeling like, okay, this is going to go okay. And so it's similar every time, but it's not a conscious decision to do that, like smile and like, well, okay.
Yeah.
But it happens because it's me relaxing and me going, okay, I've got them on side now.
Yeah. And it's when you get that punchline or whatever that lands, and I had it the other day, in my head, I've not watched it back because I just haven't got around to it, is I got a proper applause break. And I felt like I bowed at the point, which is a really weird thing to say. But I don't know if I did or not.
Like you've just finished a theatre show.
Thank you very much. I'm almost done. You've made my day. And it's almost like a thank you to the audience. Like you've come along on this journey with me. You've sat through all of this, not guff, but you've sat through funny bits, quiet bits, and then we've got to the bit that I know is going to hit. And then it hits, and then you get that applause break, and you're like, fuck. But then at that moment, it's like, I've now learned to stop, take it in, but then I do this thing inside of me. I smile internally and externally.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, my brain then goes, what's the next bit? And you're like, fuck.
So you touched on something there about like when you said about the bowing thing. I think maybe that's what it is. Maybe that smile and the like glint to the audience of like, okay, you like that one. That's my way of like acknowledging and thanking them for, I don't know. Or maybe it's just like, thank fuck. Maybe it's that. I don't know.
It's so odd. It's so hard to describe.
Because I'm incredibly, sorry.
Go on.
I'm incredibly insecure. Like, I play the clown all day. And, you know, when serious stuff goes on, I'm like, yeah, no, it's cool. I don't care. You know, I ain't got any feelings. And yeah, but, and I think it's one of the reasons I like do comedy. It's like that, is it approval or validate? Like, it's like, okay, you think I'm funny, that's good. It's that, massively on the inside insecure. But I mean, don't tell anyone.
We won't. All right. But you're right though. When it comes to actually performance, you want to please so much, and this is one of the hardest things I found is that when you're doing a bit and that pause, and it's having the guts to pause when there's not laughter. So you can do that bit where you pause, and then you wait for the laughter. But then sometimes if it's not going well, you're like pause. They should be laughing by now. And then you're kind of trying to go,
And do you go something that it's not something I've done. I do understand why some people do it, but it's never something I've done. But, you know, I think one of the biggest sort of faux pas you can do is go, well, that's actually funny. Again, like, you can't tell them what's funny. Like, as I said at the beginning, there's lots of things I don't find funny.
Yeah.
And everybody else does. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're not funny. It means I don't find them funny. And there could be a number of reasons why. But there's going to be millions and millions of people that don't find me funny. So, you don't tell an audience. My opinion is, don't tell an audience you should have laughed at that.
No.
Be better. Be better at comedy.
Yeah, some famous words.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things is where I've done it before where I'll do a gag, it doesn't work, or there'll be a titter in the audience, nothing that you expected. And I used to go, oh, well, you didn't like that one then. Yeah,
so that's funny, isn't it?
It is funny, but I don't like doing that bit. But sometimes if I get a little bit of a titter.
But you know, that's self-deprecating. You're not telling them off for not laughing.
No. But what I've started to do now is if there's a couple people laughing, the rest of you will get it soon, don't worry. And then move on.
Yeah. I've got one I do about, like, obviously with Trump and Zelensky, like, if anybody's watching this in 2 years' time, it's not going to make any sense.
America might not be there, or Russia might not be there, who knows?
And I really liked it. Not the funniest joke in the world, but it's, you know, the reason that Trump wouldn't stand up to Putin is because he didn't have the minerals he wanted. And did it once, I got a laugh like that. I did it again, I didn't get a laugh. I went, that's quite clever, because if you know why he wanted to do it, that got more of a laugh.
Yeah.
But if the moment you talk down to the audience, it's like, ooh. However, certain acts can do it in a faux anger way, and it works brilliantly. But that wouldn't fit with my persona.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like the silence again. Just watching Matt Price last week talking about it. Yeah, but he's got this thing that he'll do, and he'll pause and he'll walk and he can tell whether he's got the audience, which he fucking always has. But and he was talking to me about it afterwards, and I was like, that takes some bollocks. But it's that he knows he's good. He is good. He's amazing, and it's confidence, not arrogance, isn't it? And it's experience, like Gary. You know, he knows so he knows what situation he's in. He can pull it around most of the time. And it's getting to that level where you're like, look, I am funny. However, if they're not finding me funny, I've got this I can do, I've got that I can do. Yeah. Some of us are never going to learn that. Some of us, you know, but that's the goal, isn't it? To be able to play any room, I think.
Yeah, I think it's, Dan Cohen said, it's the aim is to be undeniable wherever you perform. And you're like, yeah, okay, I get it.
And I think what it would be good is nobody's ever going to find you're never going to have everybody find you funny.
No. But
people can go, look, I don't find him funny, but I can see why people do. I think that's probably the best you're going to get, isn't it?
Yeah. True.
And that would be good.
Okay. So on a lighter topic then. Yeah. So you did mention that if you was ever to create a special and or if you know things go really well and you end up on Netflix and all of that lot. I
mean, I just gave you a title of an imaginary special. Yeah. I didn't say any of the rest of that.
We can build on that. So you've got the title. So what's the walk-on music?
So it used to be Son of a Preacher Man. It would have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it would be Charmless Man by Blur.
Okay.
So do you know, it's only the intro.
Yeah.
Do you know, right, so the intro goes, I met him in a crowded room.
Yeah.
Where people go to drink away their gloom.
Yeah.
He sat me down and so began the story of a charmless man. So I'm the charmless man and so I feel that is what open mic comedy is. And it's not catchy, it's not upbeat, and it's self-deprecating. So I quite like that. That's what it would be.
That's quite nice. I like that. You could just have that playing and then as that sentence finishes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in my Instagram reels, it's always that music. That's what I'll put. Because I think it's, I don't know. I don't know why. I like that as an analogy of open mic comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is calling yourself a charmless man, but which is probably accurate. But no idea. That's what it'd be.
Okay.
So, I mean, so obviously growing up, like comedy, so like things I would watch with my dad. So you said about Netflix. I have no desire to have a Netflix special.
But come on, if they came knocking and said, we want one, here's £500,000, you'll be like, you're not going to say, oh, no. Right. I said on a podcast a few years ago I wouldn't do it.
No, I didn't say I wouldn't do it. I said, that's not my goal, which was, well, right, if they did, I mean, they'd need their head testing, but I would do it. However, I wouldn't, if they come to me and said, can you do a Netflix special, 60 minutes about growing up as Jehovah's Witness? No, I wouldn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the money is. But if I was able, but other than that, yes, no problem. But that's not my goal in comedy anyway.
No.
So
what is the ambitions?
Well, so growing up, like I used to watch with my dad, Blackadder. Again, Blackadder goes forth, I think amazing, massively serious subject, World War II, not really any comedy in that. Not a huge amount. But how they did that, it can make you laugh and cry at the same time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, then stupid stuff, Bottom and the young ones.
I love Bottom.
Yeah.
I absolutely adored Bottom.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, so my dad's a gas man, and then you got the episode with the gas man. So, as kids, with dad going, the gas man, mum, the gas man.
That was the one where they sellotaped into the ceiling.
Yes, yeah.
And that was Nigel from EastEnders, was the actor.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. And he writes in his diary, I'm now, having completed the gas check, I'm now off to do my hobby of bus surfing. And they try and throw him out. Father Ted.
Yeah.
I loved Father Ted. Me and my brother were still quite, these cows are small. Those are far away. It's stupid stuff like that. So, those programs. And then, like, stand-up, like Lee Evans. Right, so my mum loved Lee Evans.
Yeah,
so my dad had a massive influence. She used to watch all those programs with him. My mum obviously tried to influence us, so she got tickets for us to go and see Lee Evans 2 weeks in advance up in Nottingham. So we go up there, we drive up there, Nottingham Ice Arena, no queues. We were a year early. Yeah. So my mum did try and influence us with comedy, but she booked the tickets a year early.
Yeah.
And I told her I was going to tell that story. And she was like, really? Did that happen? Yes, it happened. Yes, Mum. We were in Nottingham a year early. But no, we did go back a year later. And Lee Evans was very good. So, like, I know you say, like, would you like to be famous? I would like to be successful in comedy. I'd like to make a career out of comedy. If one thing, have I got news for you? That would, I used to watch it with my dad as a kid. And yeah, like, if I was to do that, then I'd just quit the next day. That would be the ultimate goal. So, like, I don't necessarily think that being famous is all that, it's not that great. I think there's a lot more negatives than there are positives. Having just said I'd like to be on a massive BBC primetime show. But yeah, I'm not laying awake at night wanting to be famous.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. It would be nice to make a living out of comedy and then earn enough so if the kids said, Dad, you got a tenner, you can say yes. Yeah. But no, Have I Got News for You would be the ultimate goal. Or like write something that was on Have I Got News for You. Look, chances are pretty slim, but work hard. The chances are slim, but the chances are none if I don't try.
Yes. No, I completely agree. No, going back to Lee Evans is probably one of my comedy heroes.
Yeah.
Growing up. And
so much energy and sweat so much.
I was fortunate enough to go to the first time he ever played Wembley Arena. Yeah. And that was the first time any stand-up comic had ever played Wembley Arena as a solo. Before that was actually, ironically, Newman and Baddiel. They did it as their TV show reenacted at Wembley Arena. So they technically, I think, were the first.
So you.
But as a stand-up act,
it was him.
Lee Evans. And I remember him going on stage and he grabbed the microphone stand and made it out like a machine gun.
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it first came out on DVD and everything, they cut that bit out. That bit wasn't
I saw him
there.
live 3 times with the DVDs and stuff. But yeah, he is, I mean, so much energy.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Bohemian Rhapsody, the song that he did at the end. Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. That's just.
Even if you don't like musical comedy, that's just brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Clever as well. Like, I know people who don't think Lee Evans is funny. However, they appreciate and acknowledge the cleverness of him. And that's kind of the goal, isn't it? Like, how good his writing is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, he's mad as well.
Yeah.
And you know, as I said earlier, I'm a massive contradiction when it comes to comedy. I said earlier, I like clever stuff and this and that. However, as a late teen, early 20s, my favourite show, Mighty Boosh. I mean, and that's batshit crazy.
I never got into it.
Did you not?
No.
I've been living at home and me and my brother, we just like absolutely love it. My mum was like, this is awful. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So for someone who likes clever political jokes and then like, oh yeah, the Mighty Boosh, Toast of London. Like,
yeah, I didn't mind Toast of London.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of Matt Berry's brilliant, isn't he?
But I loved the IT crowd and stuff like that. And all those kind of,
There was a fire at Sea Parks. that just episode is brilliant.
I mean, I don't know if my comedy liking has always been varied. There's never really been one because you go to things like The In-Betweeners, and I think The In-Betweeners was just like an absolute work of art. It was just couldn't stop laughing at it.
Oh, I mean, I did earlier. Comedy friends, like things have gone into vocabulary.
The amount of times, like you, if you ever see, the guy that plays Jay, can't remember his name, James Buckley.
Yeah.
He now makes almost a living off of doing bus wanker on Cameo.
Briefcase wanker. Who was that? Who played Will? Because he went on to Friday Night Dinner. I thought Friday Night Dinner was very good.
See, Friday Night Dinner, because half my family are Jewish, as you know.
Yeah. I just what was that got to do with it? Oh yeah, they're Jewish. Yeah, I'd forgotten that they were Jewish. Yes.
Tams and Greg kind of reminds me of my mum. Yeah. They've got a very similar look.
See, the dad in it, not having a shirt on, but other than that, the saying stupid things, he reminded me of my dad.
That's my dad.
Yeah.
I'd walk it. My dad never wore a shirt.
Oh no, my dad wore a shirt, but just if anybody came round, like the stuff he would say, like, Dad.
No.
Dad.
My dad, it's boiling in here. It's really boiling. It's just like, what? What's it you want?
Like when he was going, what were females? And and it's like, and like I've tried to like say, like me and Greg have said to Mum and Dad, like, watch it. And we're like, that's what it was like, obviously, apart from the shirtless thing. That's what it was like if people came around to ours for dinner. Oh, and the Jewish thing, obviously. That would be a slight contradiction. But they're like, no. Like, yes, that's definitely it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody, that's why it was so popular, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because everybody can see part of their family in that. So yeah, that was always quite good. And then just like stupid ones like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Not stupid, but perhaps not comedically intelligent.
Yes.
But like sitting there, and then Layla likes Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Obviously, you have to choose which episode she can watch.
Mm-hmm.
But then when like the Backstreet Boys song comes on and Layla says now number 5, like quoting Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm like, it's just like, although to be fair, she wrote did a quip to my mum the other day, which is far better than anything I'll ever write. So Layla made a cake and left it a complete mess. And we were at my mum's, and my mum goes, Layla, you've left a mess. Yeah. I thought Nans was supposed to just tidy it up, but no, apparently not. And then she comes in, she goes, Layla, you've left a mess. She goes, Nanny, I mean, this is like little shit behaviour, but so good I ended up tidying it up for her. Yeah. She goes, Nanny, I am currently identifying as Neve, which is her little sister. And so it was Layla that made this mess. So I can't tidy it up. I was like, damn. And then I got shouted at. Like, this is your fault. I was like, no, John, I'm going to tidy it up because I'm impressed with that. Like, I think that's very good. It's like, I'm never going to write anything that funny or that quick. But yeah, so that was a very long answer to what do you want to do in comedy. I'd like to make a living. The ultimate goal would be, have I got this for you? But let's be realistic. Driving around, getting McDonald's with Duncan 2 a.m. after being in Nottingham is pretty damn good.
Fair enough. So one thing we kind of sort of semi-touched on at the start, but I don't think we actually got the answer, was like, what's the first joke you ever wrote?
I remember the first, like, heckle I dealt with at school. So I was like year 10, I think. Like, what's that, like 15? 14, 15?
Yeah, something like that.
So you got to bear in mind, like, going to school as a Jehovah's Witness, lads, you're going to get stick. So you've got to accept you're going to get stick. So you've got to be able to give it back. So we were in maths. I can't remember when it was. I know who said it, but he still lives in Stevenage. So I'm not going to say. And he has said to me, so we're like 14. So you know how lads are bullshit. Yeah. Well, at all ages, but especially at 14. You're one of them Jehovah's. So that means you're a virgin because you're not allowed to have sex till you're married. And at that point in my brain, I've got 2 choices. It's like kill or be killed, in it. And I don't fight. So I had to come back with something. So I went, yeah, I can blame my religion for that. What's your excuse? And all of a sudden it just flipped it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm all right at this. First joke I ever wrote. So I used to just tell like stories. And so this is kind of like 2 or 3 different jokes that other people have written I put together. This is before I did comedy, before I appreciated that, originality and all that lot. But I've been telling this story for about 20 years, and I'm pretty sure that I wrote enough of this for it to be but it's 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's definitely the first joke I used to tell. Pretty sure it's the first joke I ever wrote. So, and I would tell it, and I always tell it to my nanny to get her every time, because she never saw it coming. It was like working construction. So I was working in this guy's house today now. I said, we're working there a couple of days. He's like ex-army, I think. I said, he lost his like hand, IED, I assume. Got this nice watch on. And I said, you know what I'm like, Nana? Like, you're not supposed to ask, are you? But that's what I did. She goes, you didn't ask him about his hand, did you? I was like, well, no, but I've been working here a couple of days. And I said to him, oh, that's a nice watch. And he was like, yeah, like 10 grand, got it when I left the army. I was like, I wasn't asking how much it cost. I was like, obviously you wear it on like the nut, but I don't know what are you not worried it's going to fall off? And he goes, well, yeah, I am, yeah. But if I wore it on the other hand, how the fuck am I going to do it up? And
I like that.
Yeah. So, like, I've never told it on stage because it was 20 years ago. Like, I need to, like, Google to... I believe I heard the concept and I rewrote it and did that. I need to, before I tell it on stage, I need to 100% check that I definitely wrote that, because I've been telling that for 20 years, but I don't. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, because when you were talking about the hand that it was on, I could see where you were going.
Yeah, it was obvious.
Yeah. But I didn't get the next bit.
Yeah, so it's... Yeah,
that's the genius part of it, isn't it? That's
how the fuck would I do it?
Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah.
So I claim that is the first joke I've ever written. I need to go away and Google fact check that. But yeah, I like that stupid little one.
Yeah. What's your favourite joke?
So the one I told earlier about the racist and the murderer. However, I wrote one on Saturday, which I think is going to become my favourite joke.
Yeah.
And it's, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, I don't know if you're aware, Jehovah's Witnesses are very anti-trans. I mean, fusions, not people. And it might not get the biggest laugh, but I'm really proud of that. I don't know why, I really like it. Well, I'll tell you why. Because it touches on my upbringing, it's not taking the piss, and it's misdirecting. And so I like it. Probably won't get a big laugh, but that's my favourite one I've written at the minute.
Okay.
But it changes regularly.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's put you to the test with the little book of shit jokes. So for anybody that's a first-time listener here or watcher, I like to set comedians a challenge to tell a joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. The comedians get to pick the joke that they tell, but they only get to pick it randomly by page number. So what they're going to get, I haven't got a clue on what they're going to get. It's going to be terrible because the title of the book is so apt. So if you want to give me a number between 5 and 95, and if we do pick a joke, page that's already gone, then we move on and keep going. So
I spoke quite a bit about Layla. She's 10, so I'll pick 7 because Neve is 7.
Okay, 7. There's
a method to picking that, and I'll tell you why in a second.
Right, it's a bit of I'll say it's a long joke. It's not 2 lines. So, okay, right. The joke I want you to tell on stage, I read these now in advance because if I don't read them in advance, they don't come out right and everyone's confused. Just look at Chris Alley's one from about 10 weeks ago. The joke I want you to tell on stage is, somebody stole my luggage, leaving only the handle, lock and wheels. I took it to the local police station and laid the parts in front of an officer. He said I didn't have much of a case.
Right, right, we're gigging together on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll either put it into the police bit or the reason I picked Neve's age, because I'll then make out like she told me it.
Well, that's what I did with mine.
Yeah.
So somebody set me a joke from here. They kind of, as I
was... Because then they have to laugh. It's better than saying this is true. A child wrote it.
I did write bits around it. Somebody reverse Uno'd this challenge onto me.
Right.
And they said, but I want you to do it at one of my gigs. So I went to theirs, got a spot on theirs, did it. But the joke was, why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know why. It was up to it, but it looked like it was up to something foul. So I started off my set with basically saying, like, in a relationship, I'm the joker, the wife's the serious one, but the kids take their humour from me. My daughter came home from school one day and told me this joke, and I want to run it by you, see what you all think. And I used her as that leverage into the joke. Comedian at the end came up to me and said, kids are so clever these days, aren't they?
Did you correct him?
No. And I didn't have the heart to correct him and just say that was a load of bollocks and just made up on the spot kind of thing. But it was so funny. I got a good laugh in the audience. And when the headliner of the night came up to me and said that, I'm just like, oh, that was convincing. So I'll take that. I will take that.
I'll day. My next gig's Wednesday. I'll do it on Wednesday.
You mentioned it earlier. Newtown.
Yes.
And Newtown Comedy, your own night that you started.
Yep.
What, 9 months ago?
Yeah, we started in July.
Yeah.
With
a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, not a clue what we were doing. And it went all right for a few months. It then became apparent that there were 4 of us that started out. So it was myself, George, Chris, and Caroline. For various different reasons, it ended up just being Caroline and myself, and then Caroline wasn't very well. It ended up being just Caroline and myself, and then Caroline wasn't very well, so it was just myself. And so it was like, I couldn't do it anymore. So it took a break from December. Well, we've taken a break every month you were supposed to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Mark's applied, right, we're not doing it this month.
Just shut it down. Shut it down. However, one of the things, when we spoke earlier about, I perhaps should have touched on it, about the open mic scene in London, one thing that would be nice to see is a clear progression path. So you could do your first gig somewhere and then you could go, there's not at the same venue, but there's a clear progression if you are good enough. And I know that Duncan's working on a few bits where We're trying to do something in Hertfordshire. And so Duncan and Gary have come on board to sort of, so we're like rebranding and restarting Newtown with the help and the professionalism experience. Generally, those two know what they're doing, don't they? So yeah, it's restarting next week or last week, depending on when you listen to this, last month. So it's still going to be open mic. It's still going to be somewhere where you could do your first gig. However, we're going to get some people doing some pros doing some new material. Gary's going to, at the moment, be the resident MC. When I say at the moment, like that's the plan. Yeah. And then just depends on how, you know, who knows what happens in 3 months' time. It might be the case where somebody comes along and they are an MC. So it's like, right, then he says, right, well, let them to try it. So the idea is that Newtown will be for people who are just starting out in comedy. Yeah. With quality, like opener and closer. That being said, it is Duncan and myself on Wednesday. So, you know, Duncan's closing, so you've got one quality. But yeah, so that's the plan. You know, it's to do that, get people involved and make the opportunity open. It's free for the audience as well. They can donate it at the end if they want to, if they laughed. So yeah, that's the plan. New venue. It's going to the Willows pub, well, Man in the Moon, whichever way you know it from. Yeah. In Stevenage. In Stevenage. It's going to be the first Wednesday of every month. We put the dates out. We've had 190 people apply for the first 3 months. 190? Yeah. As of earlier today. And so... For how many spots in total? 17. Yeah. And so it is, and I know everybody says it, like, and we all get downhearted when we don't get responded to, but genuinely you just can't, you know, you can't watch all of those videos, you can't respond to all of those. So yeah, so if anybody doesn't get replied to it, it's not because we've gone, oh, we don't like them. Yeah. But even with more people working, you know, you can't, you know, it's just impossible. Oh yeah, it's one of those things I do completely get it. When I created my own night for a couple of months and you kind of go, oh, I'd like to have that person, and you kind of go, well, I've really only got 4 open spots, and one of them, so yours was more of a semi-pro. Yeah. So this is not quite that, but we still want, like, you know, good opener, good closer. Obviously, you know, I'm not saying Duncan and I will perform every month, but we will do stuff as and when. Obviously, it's our night. Gary will MC, so we're going to have sort of 5 or 6 open spots, and then opportunities for people to close it as well. But yeah, it's just not this, and that's one of the reasons. Like Duncan's trying to, like, we're trying to do different bits with different venues and maybe try and build something, because just to give people opportunities. If you're good enough, but equally you've got to make sure the opportunities are there for everybody. So how do people find Newtown online then? So it's Newtown Comedy Live on Instagram and Facebook. And then I'm at Lewis Comedy on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. So, yeah, you can go on there on the Hearts Comedy Workshop or at Duncan Hart, at Gary Ginali. Yeah, any of us, just, then we can direct you to Newtown. But yeah, come down and watch, come down, apply to perform. We've got somebody performing on the relaunch show. It'll be their first gig. Yeah. So that's the plan. We want to, that'd be cool. Can't say it's open to everybody. And then, no, so very much somebody who comes to the workshop, it's going to be their first gig. Yeah. Cool. You can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to us on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe. 5-star rating would be lovely. Leave a comment on a YouTube video or Spotify as well. They're open now for people to put whatever they want, as long as it's nice, really would be good. And just lastly, thank you very much for your time today, Lewis. No, thank you for having me. That's all right. I've been asking to come on for ages, so I do appreciate it. We've got him here eventually. Yeah. And for everyone else, I will speak to you all very, very soon. Goodbye.